Tom Bianculli is a trailblazing CTO that's helped transform some of the largest brands in tech to become more efficient, more competitive, and more profitable. Meet Tom Bianculli, CTO of Zebra Technologies, in his opening keynote on transformational benefits at the intelligent edge.
We do quite a bit of work at Zebra with a number of different consultants and industry analysts, some of which we have here in the room. And one of the individuals we've had the pleasure of working with is Professor Robert Wolcott. And he's quoted as saying, one of the most powerful forces shaping markets will be that production and provision of products and services ever closer to the point of demand. Being able to deliver value in the moment, in someone's moment of need, right? And whether that's in a B2C context or a B2B context. And you only have to just look around at some of the data points that are out there. We ended last year with total global e-commerce sales of about $4 trillion. Over the next 4 years, that's going to grow by 50% to $6 trillion. And some of the correlating factors we've seen around that is with every additional $1 billion of e-commerce sales, there's about 1 million square feet of logistics space that gets built out, right? So a lot of urgency around being able to rise to the occasion from an e-commerce perspective. And more of that is happening in a mobile fashion. So these orders are being placed, we're all doing it. They're being placed using a mobile device and kind of doing it in a snacking-based fashion. So rather than queuing up a set of purchases, you're doing that sort of as the moment unfolds and what you're thinking about ordering and placing those orders. And the rippling effects of that into enterprises, into the supply chain are actually way more profound than you might initially think. Think about the number of parcels that need to be shipped. As one CEO said to me, we're shipping more and more eaches and less cases. And so the idea of kind of being able to do that and do it in an on-demand ordering type of way, the way customers' perceptions have shifted, right? 62% of customers believe fast delivery is going to be the biggest differentiator. And the market for on-demand by 2025 is going to exceed over $250 billion. So massive amounts of money flowing into this. And that's all happening, right, in the face of this triple squeeze, where we're dealing with unprecedented labor shortage. We're dealing with this shifting expectations. So what consumers, brands expect from those that they interact with is changing very dynamically, and it's happening in a much more liquid fashion. I'll speak about that a little bit more in a moment. And there's this massive diminished predictability. So if you're trying to predict what inventory you need and what location, good luck. That's changed, immensely over the last couple of years. You're trying to plan where do you place your capital equipment, right? Whether that's trailers or it's transportation equipment that's got to be positioned around the network to be able to do optimal delivery. That's gotten challenged in terms of predictability. And of course, the labor side as well. And just to put this in perspective, we ended 2020 here, as you can see from some of this Korn Ferry data, with about a 3% labor deficit, which is unusual in and of itself. That resulted in about $2 trillion of unrealized global economic output. By the end of the decade, okay, we're looking at an 11% labor shortage, so more than a tripling of that labor shortage, with a unrealized economic output of between $8 and $9 trillion. This has never happened before in history, right? Where we're actually going to gate economic output because of this labor challenge. And to put this in perspective, out of the 20 countries in the study that Korn Ferry did, if you fast forward to 2030, that results, what I just showed, results in a shortage of 85 million workers, which is the entire population of Germany, right? Just to put that in perspective. And that $8 trillion of unrealized economic output is the combined GDP of Germany and Japan together, right? And this is, we're staring down the barrel of this over the next 6 or 7 years. And it's not like, if I just go back one, it's not like, it's not happening. It's happening. It's been happening for the last 3 years. As we advance over the next 6 or 7, we're going to see it, more than double as a challenge for us. So that one's in the backdrop. The other one around expectations, this is another really profound one, because expectations for an enterprise used to be driven by those that do commerce with them, their customers, and their competitors, right? Those were the competitive forces largely playing into what are the expectations that my constituent has on me delivering to them. More and more, this concept of liquid expectations is emerging, which is the idea that an experience you have in one industry, just fluidly bleeds over into another industry and changes your expectation in that other industry. The example I'm using here is consider the Apple Genius Bar compared to a healthcare experience, right? If I go to the Apple Genius Bar, I register ahead of time, I select a slot, I describe what my challenge is, maybe what the health of my device is, even from a healthcare kind of analogy context. All that information is shared ahead of time. I'm greeted by name when I arrive there, and all of the necessary elements that are required to have a great experience at that Apple Genius Bar are in place when I arrive, and all that contextual information is set ahead of time. Compare that with a healthcare visit, right? Where it's like, hey, fill out, you get there and you're filling out forms and you're doing that in maybe a paper-based fashion. So the expectation being set in an Apple environment is affecting the healthcare environment. In fact, we're giving a talk later this year on what is being called the retailification of healthcare. So healthcare providers are thinking about the competitive forces relative to them around that. You can focus on the right-hand side of this chart in the interest of time, was just the inventory side of things. You don't need to look any further than what happened in retail inventory if you want to look at the challenge in predictability. So 2 years, the increase, so 2 years after essentially the start of the pandemic, those 2 years following 2020, we saw a total inventory distortion increase of 20% in terms of overstocks and 8% in terms of understocks. So a couple of years after this challenge started of being able to predict what inventory do I need to have in what location, the largest of the large retailers still getting it wrong to the tune of costing, between those overstocks and understocks, the tune of costing $2 trillion, which is 10% of global retail trade impacted because of overstocks and understocks. So this predictability challenge is not one that's going away. It's not one that people have completely figured out. And what's gotten leaders in their industries to where they are today is not going to get them to where they need to go, and they're not going to stay in those positions unless they rethink their business model. So what has to change? What has to change is we've got to think about going from systems of record. We're all really familiar with systems of record. Think about, in a lot of the examples I gave, an electronic medical record system, or an inventory management system, or a customer relationship management system, a warehouse management system. These are systems of record that are telling you what should be happening, right? The system of record is essentially a plan. And the world we're moving into, the competitive forces are killing the notion of a plan, as profound as that may sound. And why would I say that? I would say that because if you're delivering in an on-demand world, and the expectation is, what's the expectation of that in the limit in an on-demand world? The expectation is that I get infinite selection delivered in closer and closer to zero time. So we really need to move to a world where we're not operating off of systems of record that are producing plans that we're trying to execute, but we're leveraging systems of reality which are observing. They're creating a connected fabric at the edge of the network where you're literally not understanding what should your inventory position be, but you're seeing your inventory position in real time.
This is the fundamental shift Tom is suggesting, from backward-looking systems of record to systems of reality, to be able to react and respond in real time, and to do that in an intelligent way. What does this mean in practice? He gave 3 example use cases: retail, food delivery, and medicine. Target stores say publicly that they are fulfilling about 90% of their orders from online e-commerce, orders coming from far away, different time zones. Inventory is no longer a function of the number of people coming to the store. At the end of the day, the inventory reported through inventory management software is barely 65% accurate. Make that a smart sensor-enabled store with a combination of RFID, computer vision, and other types of sensor to see what's on the shelf, what's on the rack, and where people are looking, all in real time. If a customer wants a particular size, style, and color of shirt, and all the clothes are RFID tagged, you know at once if it's in stock and where. For a more critical example, he points out that 1/3 of the food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted globally. That's over 1 billion tons per year wasted. Zebra has been adopting IoT tags, not only to keep track of individual pallets, but to report on environmental conditions that could degrade the food before the damage is done. The same technology can protect and extend the shelf life of pharmaceuticals and vaccines. Biggest of all is the scope to improve medical devices by equipping the healthcare worker with a badge to identify themselves to the network, a patient wristband, the time of day coming, the medication RFID tag, etc. We can integrate all of that information seamlessly together and verify that all of those things, the right medication, right person, right time, right care provider, delivered in the right way, potentially eliminating many of those 250,000 deaths caused by medical errors. What's more, a system like that allows clinicians and nurses to actually do the job that they're passionate about. Nurses didn't choose their vocation to learn how to fill in forms. They want to care for people and save or improve lives. These systems not only save time, they give time back to the worker to improve the quality of care. As a final real-time example, Tom brings us back to the football field.
At the Super Bowl, and actually at every NFL game, Zebra has a tag. It's actually this tag that I'm holding in my hand. It's the size of a quarter, maybe a quarter-inch thick. It's in the shoulder pads of every single NFL player at every NFL game throughout the season, including at the Super Bowl. And we even have a version of this tag in the football. And we track those players in the football with 10 centimeters of accuracy 10 times a second. Right? So we're able to understand the position, but because we do it so frequently, we can also understand velocity, acceleration, deacceleration. And so we're doing that tracking on the football field in real time. It's a great example of a system of reality that's used by the broadcasters to improve our fan experience through next-gen stats you see on TV, but it also is used by the coaching staff to improve player performance. And so if we can do that on the football field, I guess my question is, what are we waiting for, right? We got to go from the football field, and we got to go think about how do we do that for patients? How do we do that in an oil and gas type of environment where safety is critical? How do we do that from a supply chain perspective to make sure that we can get the right goods to the right place at the right time to fulfill needs? And if we do that, if we do it the right way, we've got a great opportunity to create a more responsible future, a more sustainable future, a more healthy one. And it's all about connectivity, visibility, and being able to orchestrate that workflow in real time. So let's go on that journey together. Thank you.
You've been watching Key Extracts from Tom Bianculli's keynote presentation at NetEvents Live Global Media Summit 2023. Enjoy the full transcript of his talk, including his answers to in-depth questions from Roy Chua, founder and principal, AvidThink, plus the full Q&A session with Global IT Media. It's free and available now from netevents.org.